Hey, Scott. Well, American distillers are raising a glass to the EU this year after the countries announced they would extend a suspension of tariffs on U.S. whiskey. And if they hadn't, Kentucky bourbon, Tennessee whiskey would have been slapped with a 50% tariff that would have started on Monday with the start of 2024. The tariffs on liquor, they're the result of a larger dispute on steel and aluminum tariffs that were initially put in place under the Trump administration. Now, under the Biden administration, the U.S. and the EU have been negotiating over the tariffs for about 2 years. And U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai said the goal is to, quote, forge a forward-looking arrangement that will allow the U.S. to join forces economically to incentivize fair and clean production and trade in the steel and aluminum sectors. Kentucky Republican Congressman Andy Barr, who pushed for an extension of the halted tariffs, told me that the EU has become a critical market for distillers from his home state. In the years after tariffs were first lifted in 2021, Barr said there was a 32% increase in U.S. exports.
Really matters. Europe is the biggest market outside of the United States for American bourbon exports. We're still trying to crack the code in Asia and in other parts of the world, but Europe really understands aged distilled spirits. And so this is the place where we really need a level playing field, zero taxes, zero tariffs to really continue to grow this industry.
The current pause on whiskey tariffs is set to last until March 31st, 2025, and both U.S. and EU trade officials are hoping to get a deal on steel and aluminum before then. Sarah?
All right, so they dodged a bullet there. Emily, thank you. I want to bring in Brandon Gomez now for the impact to the alcohol makers. You cover these stocks. Have they reacted?
Yeah, so they haven't reacted in terms of swinging one way or the other from the relief of the tariffs. However, what I will say is if you look at the performance of these stocks year to date, you see that a lot of them have actually been in the decline, right? You have Brown-Forman, you have Diageo, although, again, we're talking Scotch there with the Johnnie Walker product. But Brown-Forman, they issued more cautious guidance because they say, look, consumers, they're not going to be spending on whiskey as much in the coming years as well. So you have to sort of factor in that Europe is a large market for a lot of these players when it comes to those whiskey sales. So this actually is a win for those names.
Are there just changing tastes as to why the guidance isn't that great? People not drinking brown spirits as much as other things?
Changing tastes in the U.S., definitely. You see vodka still number one, tequila mezcal overtaking whiskey as the second most popular spirit by net volume and also by sales growth. But still, that's why Europe is such a big market for these companies when it comes to their whiskey sales. You see Brown-Forman opening up a distribution plant in Slovakia so they can better serve their European markets in the last year.
Well, beer had a tough year. I mean, it wasn't just the decline of AB InBev and the whole disaster around the marketing issue, but continued slower volumes in beer, too.
Yeah, beer as well, one of those players that, as you said, has seen a lot of market share shift. People moving away from Bud Light, Budweiser, now moving over to Modelo, brands like Constellation Brands portfolio, things like that as well. It's really sort of seeing this reallocation of interest. Also, I mean, we're talking about non-alcoholic beverages as well going into the new year, as Gen Zers just tend to drink less in general.
Well, I wonder how much the GLP-1 issues that we saw hit packaged food stocks, for instance, also ultimately have an impact on how much alcohol we're drinking.
Yeah, alcohol, but also then just broader consumer products, right? How is that going to impact consumer spending, not just here in the U.S., but in Europe? And again, with these tariffs not being enacted until 2025, we might see some more of that play out.
I mean, anecdotally, people I know who are on these drugs are not drinking as much alcohol. The question is how widespread are people going to be on these drugs? Are they going to get paid for? You know, they're very expensive, that sort of thing. But could change the behaviors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Brendan. Appreciate it. Brendan Gomez.